the minutes show that this is Carroll County Fiscal Court regular meeting agenda for February 11th, 2025. At this time, we stand to do a pledge of allegiance to the
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our dear Heavenly Father, Lord, again, we're just thankful for the freedoms we have in this nation to gather here. Just be with the proceedings over here over the next few minutes, Lord, and just hope and pray that, again, you guide and direct us into our decisions and conversations and so forth. Lord, be with those that are out plowing the roads today, Lord, as we get another dose of winter, Lord, just be with them, protect them, and all the folks that are traveling here and there. Be with our law enforcement and emergency response folks here in our community. Keep them safe as they help protect us and take care of us in our bad moments. Be with our men and women that are protecting our freedoms around the world, Lord. For these things we ask in Jesus Christ. Amen.
Need a motion to approve the minute for January 28th, 2025.
Second.
Okay, motion by Lee, second by Scott. All in favor, say aye. Budget transfers, and motion. Motion by Scott, second by Clay. All in favor, say aye. Invoice approval. Motion. Motion by Clay, second by Scott. All in favor, say aye. There's a financial report, informational report in your packet. Any questions or anything? No, that's ready. So, all right. There's nothing on that. So, Kyle, you're good. Kyle's here for the regional drug task force that we've been discussing for the last several months.
I'll preface this by saying that we've all been talking about it. Keith Perry, Henry County Sheriff, has spearheaded this, trying to get this task force up and going. That would take care of the surrounding counties and give us a lot more ability to do more about the drug problems and help each other. So Kyle's got a presentation he's going to give them away.
So if y'all don't know, that says Keith Perry, he's Henry County Sheriff. So.
Wasn't sure how many are going to be here, so I think I'm going to print out 10 of these so people want to look at it and pass it around. This is just kind of, this particular is from the Crime in Kentucky report that's produced by the state police, but it's published every year. And it says this is specific to Carroll County. So those numbers are specifically Carroll County numbers. You can see I highlighted in yellow all the drug arrests. They make up for, in some cases, 94%. If you look at the bottom, I denoted of the Carroll Police Department, 94%, 94.78% of their arrests involve drugs. Carroll County, or the state police, 75% involved narcotics. And then the Carroll County Sheriff's Office, 65% involved narcotics. You can click, I think there's a couple of. This is the counties that are involved at the moment with what we propose to be called the North Central Kentucky Narcotics Task Force. Go to the next slide. These numbers were produced by the DEA. This just kind of shows the trends that crystal meth and fentanyl have taken from 2001 to 2021. So as you can see with the grids and the chart, it's on an up spike. And I can assure you that in 2022, 2023, 2024, those numbers haven't went down any. You can go to the next slide. So the mission of the task force, obviously, would be to combat the sale, use, and otherwise dealing of illegal drugs and substances that determined to be in violation of Kentucky law. Would investigate all trafficking, narcotics, and prepare investigative reports to the prosecuting attorneys within the respective jurisdiction. in which the violation occurred. The task force would investigate all overdose deaths within the jurisdiction of the task force. So essentially how that would work and look, somebody would call 911, responders would go first, and then say Carroll County Sheriff's Office responded and got there, realized, hey, this is an overdose death, we need to call whoever the director of the task force is. You'll have on-call guys, and they'll go out and actually be the ones that work the overdose death. And with that, as most of you know, the limited resources that a one-man department, not a one-man department, but a small department such as the Sheriff's Office or Carroll Police or whomever, a road unit or someone who's taking calls every day doesn't necessarily have the time, resources to be able to track or investigate overdose deaths. And you may say, well, what's there to investigate? Somebody sold them those drugs. In Kentucky law, there is statutes that you can charge people, not just trafficking, but actually for the homicide, so to speak, or manslaughter for that. So, and then they would also assist local, state, and federal agencies in place in narcotics investigations within the jurisdiction of the task force. So within Carroll County, Henry County, Sherman County, and so on. So it would work similar to this. There would be a board of directors that would be formed, and they would be essentially in charge of the task force. The board of directors would hire, you'll see in a second, a director for the task force. So this is who would make up the board of directors. It'd be one Commonwealth attorney there's 3 Commonwealth attorneys total within the 6 counties. So it'd be one Commonwealth attorney, 1 county attorney, 3 judge executives. That's assuming that all 6 counties participate. And then the chief law enforcement officer or officers for each participating agency. And that kind of falls under the captain of KSP Post 5 because they're going to give a man also. So the captain would sit on the board along with the sheriffs. There'd be a total of 12 board director spots. No county attorney and judge executive would serve on the board at the same time, simultaneously, so at the same time. No Commonwealth attorney and county attorney will serve from the same circuit or district simultaneously. So basically that would alleviate any one geographical area, county, 1 to 2 counties, running it for the whole 6 counties. Every county would have a vote. Every county would have say-so, and it would be equally distributed throughout the jurisdiction of the task force, not just in one particular spot running it for everyone, so no one felt like they were being left out, etc. The duties of the board of directors, they would obviously be the governing body of the North Central Kentucky Narcotics Task Force. They would hire a unit commander or a director of the task force that would run the day-to-day operations. They would approve and disapprove appointments of sworn personnel to the task force as recommended by the unit commander or the director. They would meet monthly or quarterly, depending on how the bylaws were set, for the director to report the status to the task force to the board. So a progress report, if you will. There's been a lot of kind of back and forth concern about who sits on the board and how classified the information would be that would be shared with the board. The board of directors' sole job would be money and making sure that the task force was operating the way that it needed to be operated. There wouldn't be names of informants, there wouldn't be names of suspects, there wouldn't be case reports generated to the board of directors. The only thing that the board of directors would do would basically get a progress report. Here's the numbers, here's what we did in Carroll County the past 3 months, here's what we've done in Henry County the past 3 months, etc. And then they would approve or disapprove any kind of funding. Unit commander or the director would be in charge of preparing a budget. We would present it to the board of directors. The board of directors would obviously be in charge of approving or disapproving that, making changes, etc. They would establish bylaws for the Northern Kentucky Narcotics Task Force to follow and establish and adopt policies and procedures for day-to-day operations. This kind of outlines the duties of the unit commander. So be basically a day-to-day operations supervisor, or chief of police, if you will. They have fiscal responsibility to maintain and stay within the budget approved by the board of directors or otherwise seek approval for additional spending from the board. They got to seek and apply for the grant funding. They have to manage the accounts related to controlled narcotics transactions and asset forfeiture. Manage evidence intake and outtake, transport evidence to the KSP lab for testing, report lab tests and results to the appropriate authorities, prosecutors as it relates to prosecution, and handle court orders for evidence destruction and asset forfeiture. They got to coordinate with participating law enforcement agency personnel for the task force and make recommendations to the board of directors for appointment. So basically what that means is they would be the boss of the task force essentially. Say Sheriff Gosser wants to put somebody on the task force. Once the board's formed, the board would, I believe, be the first item of business would be to hire some sort of interim director or a director. That person would then talk to the chiefs, the sheriffs, the board, and Ryan says, hey, I want to put such and such on the task force. That director of the task force would then go and do his own independent research, if you will, about that individual who Brian wants to put on the task force. And that alleviates a lot of the concern with, not Ryan per se, but anyone being able to just, this is a push job for my buddy. So you know that it will still be productive. And it would be the sole responsibility of that director and then the board of directors to appoint the right people in the right spots for the task force. The unit commander would also draft the policy and procedure manual for the board to approve. They would draft the standard operating procedures and guidelines to be followed in day-to-day operations by the detectives that were assigned to the task force. And then this just kind of outlines the participating agencies as of now. This could change a little bit. There could be some added. At this moment, it's kind of a county ran to the fiscal courts, et cetera, by the sheriffs. And Oldham County Police is involved. They're the only county in the jurisdiction, one of two in the state that even have a county police department. So I do look down the road for like city police departments and stuff like that maybe be involved at some degree. But that will be up for the board of directors to kind of decide moving forward once this thing gets formed. I know everybody that we've talked to as it relates to grant funding have kind of said, the more the merrier. You don't want to leave anybody out because the more people that you can put on the paper, the more money that you're likely to get. So,
when you're talking about your board, Kyle, we put up their chief law enforcement officers of the county. We've got 6 county co-board members. So there's room for 6 law enforcement on the board. Is that the 6 sheriffs? Or are you making spots for like the chief? Because I know you put Oldham County PD up here.
So at this time, it would be the chief law enforcement officer would be the sheriff.
So 1 per county.
But it'd be 1 per county. So not more, we understand Oldham County's bigger, understand all that, but they're not gonna, if you.
Wakefield wants to let the chief go.
If Wakefield wants to let the chief do it, then the chief does.
Gotcha.
It'd be for them to decide, but you don't want to get them to have 4 votes where we have 1. So that kind of is the way that you can keep it equal and make sure that it's ran properly. Personnel, this just kind of outlines who will be serving on the task force. Sworn peace officers on contract in their respective law enforcement agency, and their full-time narcotics detectives who would be assigned to the task force. So essentially, it's not going to be part-time. It's not going to be, we'll give you somebody as we need it. I think those avenues have been tried in other areas, and they were very unsuccessful. So this just kind of highlights how will we get funding. At first, we're looking for $40,000 from the opioid abatement money or a man. That's what the operating agreement says. I know Judge Wilway has a copy of the operating agreement. I didn't actually bring it because it's kind of a working document. I know Nick also has one.
It's a new one. The county attorneys are all still reviewing.
Right, yeah, I think it's still kind of like being worked on. So I didn't want to put it on here and confuse you with a bunch of legal stuff because it's prepared by lawyers and it's about 9 pages thick. So, but this highlights the funding in 23-24. So if it's yellow, they weren't funded. They were funded in 23-24, but they weren't funded in 24-25. So if you see at the bottom, it says total funding in 23-24 was $2.1 million, and total awarded in 24-25 was $1.75 million. So there's about $400,000 there, $300 some thousand there that was not funded in 24-25, that was funded in 23-24. And I think what Van Ingram said at our last meeting, he's the Office of Drug Control Policy, the Executive Director, the one who awards these grants essentially. He said that they have about $1.9 to $2 million. That funding kind of got cut a little bit from the $2.1 million mark, but there is funding available, is what I'm trying to say. So there are avenues that we can get this funded to where we're not going to continuously come back to fiscal courts and say, hey, I know last year we said we wouldn't ask you for any more money, but sorry, we need more money this year. So that's the idea and how the operational side of the task force, as far as the fiscal responsibility goes, would work. But you can look down the list. If it's green, that just denotes that they got more money or awarded new funding in 24-25 that wasn't there in 23-24. You can go to the next slide. And then this just kind of speaks to future funding sources, asset forfeiture, the Burn Jag grant, which is what I just showed you the chart on. And then there are other federal and state grants that you can seek and apply for. Those aren't guaranteed, obviously, those aren't guaranteed every year. But I think within our 6-county area, we have an unlimited amount of resources that, you know, we can rely on at Frankfurt, DC level to seek and get other approval for the money. That link at the bottom there is just it's a link to basically the state asset forfeiture laws. So basically, anything you seize in as it relates to narcotics or police work, 85% of that goes to the agency, the investigating agency, and then 15% of that goes to the prosecutor. So that's how we could fund the task force. That's how we could keep from coming back to the fiscal courts and saying, hey, we need more money. Because once we start going, there will be asset forfeiture. There'll be vehicles that we forfeit, there'll be cars that we seize, there'll be money seizures, and if all of that goes, you know, vehicles and whether they can be used or not, they can be auctioned if they can't, if there's no use for them as a task force. All the guns have to go to the state police, that's in statute, but other than that, that money will be coming in as an extra source of revenue for the task force. And then I think that's it. Right, that might be it. We're here to answer any questions you all might have. I know there's probably going to be several. I just kind of wanted to outline the gist of the task force, what the purpose was, how it would look, and kind of answer any questions. So,
just to add to that before the question, and this is not going to be a 71 interdiction where we just run an interstate. It's going to be within the communities. We've had a lot of questions about that. Not to say down the road that we don't branch off and you have a interdiction team, but right now this is going to be in the communities, getting the drugs out of our communities. That's our main goal. A lot of people think it's just another interdiction team, but it's not going to be that.
yes.
And to add to that, the funding and the grants that he was talking about, the task force has got to be in place for a year before we can actually apply for those grants. So that's the reason they're going to the fiscal courts and asking for the support for this next year, because most of those grants open in April, so we can get this up and rolling and then start the grant process next year.
We have to show we're about it.
Yes.
Yeah, the best way to think about it is if you go to the bank for a loan, and you don't have a history of any kind of financials, they're going to be like, yeah, probably not. But if you go to the bank for a loan, you have a year's worth of financials where you've made all your bills and gone, you know, you got this amount of money for the credit rating is good. You're most likely going to get approved. So that's kind of the way that they broke it down in terms for me, if I understand. But I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. The sheriff will as well.
I've just got one on the mechanics of it all, because you talked about hiring a unit commander, but then as far as the team, again, can you help me understand, so how that team of, what does that team look like? Things up there, like would Ryan commit a deputy to that, or, because you talked about the unit commander would go interview and personally select these individuals,
So
so.
that's what we have to decide what our contribution is gonna be. Right now, the structure is body or money. And
So
but there's still, if we send the deputies, they're still our employee. We pay all the benefits, we have everything with them. We just give them to the task force to use. Now, it is up to the board and the executive director to veto that basically if they want to. If there's a problem with that deputy, they have to go back to the governing sheriff.
So essentially, that man is no longer accountable to you.
He's
still
he has two options.
So the way that, and that's a good question, because that falls under the policies and procedure side of it. The way that would operate, they follow their department policy first and foremost. And then unless the task force policy is stricter than their department policy. So wherever they're operating at, wherever they are still a Carroll County Sheriff's Office deputy, but they are assigned to the Northern Kentucky Narcotics Task Force. So whether they're operating in Henry, Trimble, Oldham, Carroll, Gallatin, Oldham, they still do work for the Carroll County Sheriff's Office. They still do work for
Still wearing a uniform, all that type of
They
stuff?
would not wear a uniform.
So, okay, so they're gonna.
So they would be in an unmarked car,
Okay.
most likely working informants, doing narcotics buys, search warrants, etc. Now, when you get into the search warrant side of things, and you're going and doing raids at houses and stuff like that, there will be marked uniform officers there, but the case detective would be somebody from the narcotics task force.
All of it's gonna work together, because you gotta remember that each of the 6 sheriffs and each of the counties and each county attorney is agreeing that our policies are gonna coincide with their policies. We're not
And
gonna.
it's like, if Kyle was like, so I took Kyle off the road and threw him the keys to my unmarked truck, and I drove a marked cruiser around, gave him my keys. I was like, you're gonna be my narcotic guy. Because we kept kicking the can down the road and everybody thought it was a great idea. So I just had to take the initiative to do that. But I looked at it as instead of losing an officer, adding or gaining officers, because when Kyle worked the road, he did work drug complaints. I may say, watch this house, we've got a lot of complaints on it. Well, post calls Kyle, he has to leave for domestic or work a wreck or whatever. Takes him off of that. The very first week that I made Kyle, this is gonna blow his head up, but it's the truth.
Hey, he got a new truck sitting out front.
Yeah.
He really.
The very first week I made Kyle, narcotics detective for me, if you will. He started working and he had time because Post wasn't calling him on every little call that we had. He got an ounce, you correct me if I'm wrong, there was 3 pounds of marijuana, an ounce and a half of crack cocaine, and a pound of cocaine. We never would have got that. He had time to work and he investigated it. But the way I looked at it was, instead of losing an officer, we're going to gain officers in our county, because the task force, if Ryan gets a complaint on a drug house, he don't have to take the patrol unit to try to watch that. He just forwards that info onto the narcotics task force. The task force takes that over. It's actually going to increase patrol, because patrol officers don't have to per se worry about that as much. Now, where patrol officers come and rate that is, they pull over somebody, they're going to get drugs, they are. But they're going to give that information, they're going to work alongside the task force and pass that information along. So it's going to be a team effort, and that's the way I looked at it, is gaining officers in the county versus losing an officer.
And historically speaking, throughout the state and country really, but I have statistics at the state level. Northern Kentucky Drug Strike Force, there are 3 counties, Campbell, Kenton, Boone. Since the strike force has been in place, the number of violent crimes have went down. The number of burglaries and thefts, et cetera, has kind of came down. And obviously their drug arrests have went up. But same way with Hardin County, Greater Hardin County Task Force. Shane Young's their Commonwealth attorney down there. They literally meet with the task force once a year or so and say, here's 10 names. These are the people who are most likely to commit a violent felony offense. I don't care how you arrest them. Was it Capone? He got tax evasion. Yeah. So, but he was a big deal. So, it doesn't matter how you put him in prison. if you have people dedicated and able to work these cases to get bad guys off the street, so to speak, it's going to better the community.
We've, well over 95%, I would say, of our crime that is misdemeanor and felony are drug related.
Yeah. Yeah, the thefts and everything can all be tied back to drugs in
Right.
some form or fashion.
The tagline that drugs are a victimless crime is the biggest bunch of wool that there will be sold to the public. It's not. It results in domestic violence, it results, like John said, in burglary, theft. All the burglaries and thefts, majority of them that we deal with are drug related. Every time it goes back to that.
I feel when I have it.
Exactly.
Well, I think the simple fact, just like you said, the example of now you have the capacity to take an overdose death, which I guess oftentimes would just be written off as a casualty, that you can actually follow that back to find. I mean, that to me is just, that's a no-brainer. I mean, I absolutely support what you guys
Well,
are
if
doing.
somebody died from an overdose and a drug dealer sold them the drugs, we can actually prosecute if we can tie them in for the.
And see that, and from the investigative standpoint, to that point, it takes time to get search warrants on phones. It takes time to go to autopsies. It takes time to do all this stuff. But road units, once you go to a call and you get done with that call, the amount of time you have to work on that call is very small because there's another call coming. So if you're working out by yourself at night and you get overdose death, and then there's 2 wrecks out by the interstate or somewhere, and state police has only got 1 or 2 units out. Eventually, you have more calls than bodies, and you gotta try to navigate what's more important and try to get, so there's just a lot more time dedicated for a full-time detective or a team of full-time detectives to be able to work these cases and take the caseload off of Ryan and his guys.
So are we looking at hiring an officer in this position?
We don't know yet,
Well-
we're still in discussions, Ryan and I already talked about that, what Carroll County's contribution is gonna look like. And we talked about that this morning. I think our recommendation to the court at this point in time, Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, is the court go ahead and declare its intent to participate, whether it be by money or by man, we will determine that, but either way, Carroll County.
I've got a couple questions, maybe in an old corner. So have you discussed some of this with, because we've got a hospital in this county and we receive patients from Gallatin County, Carroll County, some from Henry County, basically Owen County, that have been ruled as overdoses, basically. And my tender as corner, blood draws and everything else to determine that. So if a individual dies at the Carroll County Hospital and they are transferred from Gallatin County, let's say, do we contact the Gallatin County Sheriff or do we contact our sheriff here locally?
So that would be
Or we know it's come from Gallatin County.
Yeah, so your corner would work that case, right?
Exactly,
So your
because it
corner-
came from Gallatin County. They'll have to work the case because they actually died or.
Right.
was-
But your corner goes to the hospital, as soon as your corner determines, and that's for the director to kind of coordinate amongst corners in all 6 counties, but as soon as your corner determines this is an overdose death, boom, he calls. Calls the director of the task force, or whoever's on call from the task force.
So they're gonna have to be involved somehow or another.
Yeah, so
Be educated on it.
we've talked, and that's, like I said, that would be for the director to kind of go and talk to each corner, or even talk to the corners as a group. Once this all gets formed and established, look, this is, what we're gonna be doing. This worked really well, Jimmy Pollard,
Oh,
I'd say, I hate to bring his name up. No. He referenced Richmond or Madison County. They kind of did something similar to this. And at first, I think the coroner there was very apprehensive about the task force and was like, I don't want somebody else stepping all over my scene, blah, blah, blah. But now he says if you call that coroner in Madison County and ask him about overdose death, he wouldn't work with anybody other than our narcotics task force.
And I can understand that because a lot of times when we, and I'm saying as coroners, was had to control that scene, and of course they're the chief person there. When it comes to furnish that information to that medical examiner's office or that medical examiner in the state and stuff, they're making us document everything and measurement in rooms and pictures and everything, so I can see where he's coming from on that. But if they're working together, that's one thing.
Yeah, it would be a joint effort. I mean, anything that we did in any county would have to be, aside from just your typical buy walks or whatever, like, it would have to be a joint effort. I mean, if we're doing search warrants in Carroll County, the sheriff's office and the sheriff is gonna be involved. There's no way around it. You know, even starting this, and even, this is a great thing, and I think it's gonna be very successful, but, you know, we're looking at having 3 or 4 people on it, to start. So, if we only have 3 or 4 people on it to start, there's no way that we're gonna be able to go and do a full search warrant by ourselves without having uniformed officers there. And that'll also be in the policies and procedures. I mean, you don't wanna have a bunch of dudes dressed in plain clothes going and beating on doors and kicking doors, and that's just a recipe for disaster. You want marked car cruisers there with uniforms on, identifying yourself as law enforcement officers, and then, do the work from there, so.
Well, I think, you know, from what I gathered here, the reports behind it, we'll probably determine which we're gonna do, manpower or finances, so.
Yeah, we'll sit down and discuss it.
Well,
Are they,
I want to ask this too, on the assets that get seized, where's that money go? Like money, vehicles, or how will that go?
That will go to the task.
So to the task force.
Will you get a percentage of that though?
no,
Not at the task, if my office gets things, then yes, that will come to me. Anything that the task force gets will go to the task force.
So that's kind of how we alleviate coming back to you all as a task force.
Right.
That's how we don't come back to you all. That's basically your contribution, so to speak. Because in the future years coming, as asset forfeiture grows, now, the hope is to be like Hardin County and you know, the years, succeeding years, you know, the task force will buy his officer a car and pay for the insurance on it. You know, the task force will provide his officer with a phone. The task force will be able to provide his officer with equipment. So it's kind of a give and a take. The money, while on paper it goes directly to the task force, Carroll County is still going to benefit from it because, you know, cars get old, cars are going to break down, et cetera. They're going to have to buy the cars eventually. And, you know, Greater Hardin County's task force has been so successful that they now provide their officers with cars, phones, equipment, all this other stuff that we're just not able to do right away because, well, we don't have any money.
So then, if we did that, we went back to, say, the sheriff's department, then our county would be, for the health insurance and all the, retirement and stuff like that. We'd be,
If we give them in, they're our employee, yes.
okay,
Yes,
all right, get that clear, so.
And you're talking about the asset forfeiture, 15%, remember, comes back to the county, to the prosecutor, not me, but
Right.
the felony level, so doing Ms. Roberts' level.
I will say this, and Clay and I was both at the, winners conference for judges and stuff last week, I'm sorry. And, Attorney General Coleman he'd already announced it in one of his talks, that we were in partnership already, somewhat.
He's pretty excited. I think maybe that comment was
He
jumped
is
the gun.
excited. We caught him out in the,
Yeah.
outside and then talked to him and said, wait a minute, you know, not all of us are on board with this just yet.
I think he kind of,
And the thing was, biggest question coming from some of the other counties, can we use the opioid money? And he has confirmed that.
Yes, you can, and just so y'all know, the opioid abatement money, anything you buy, I think the county has found out, well, can't use it for that. It's there's so much gray areas what you can spend the money on. This next meeting, we're on the 21st at Post, Chris Evans is gonna be there. I emailed him, he's gonna make the meeting. He is the one in charge of the opioid abatement, the audits or whatever, how you spend the money. So any questions that y'all can come up with, be a great time on any of the opioid abatement money, because he's gonna be at that meeting to answer those questions.
So should we have a representative at that meeting, maybe with the sheriff or?
Yes, now you should, did you not receive an email?
I don't know.
Well, we'll make sure, Kyle, but I thought that between.
I think you're on the email chain maybe, you should be. You're invited to the meeting.
Yeah, it's
If anybody else wants to come, feel free. I mean, it's not.
And when is it?
The 21st of this month at 10.
It's at the state police post in Campbellsburg.
And to back up on that last question, I spoke with Warren County Task Force Flowers. What's his first name? He's a director.
At Warren County?
Yeah, Warren, Bowling Green area. I can't think of their.
Tommy Lovin.
Tom-
Bowling Green. I don't know.
Okay, and then
Warren County.
Bowling Green is Warren County, so that would be, that's who I talked to.
Tommy Lovin.
They're self-funded now that they're up and running. He says that they still get the JAG grants and stuff. He said, but even without it, with the forfeit assets and all that they're self-funded. He said, if we didn't get a grant one, we get enough of that we're self-funded, you know, so it's just like building a business. You know, you don't start out at the top. You're going to have to start at, it's going to be some hiccups along the way, but once it gets going, I think it's going to be very, very successful. So,
Nick, will we have to create like a contract, like year to
You got it in
year?
your local agreement.
We have an interlocal.
There is that.
I have a question about this, and this is being prior to law enforcement. Is your judges, have they bought into this?
my judge,
Are judges going to support this and?
you're talking about the criminal judges or judges?
So we have the prosecutors on board. A lot of the times, the judges, the sitting judges, follow the recommendations of the prosecutor. And the prosecutors are actually the ones, a lot of the times, they're in the back room making any sort of plea deal, plea agreement, or anything to that nature. And then they come out in open court and they say, you know,
No, I know how it works.
well, but so yes, to answer your question, the prosecutors and the judges are on board with this. We haven't actually sat down with circuit and district judges, but there's been enough talk about this that they're very much in favor of it.
We had that argument, and for Ryan's circuit, this is not an uncommon concept. Northern Kentucky already has one. We used to participate some with them, but I think Grant County is in that task force region as well as the big three up north. So, you know, I know Lewis especially, he uses them for Gallatin and Boone, but this is not an uncommon concept for Leanne or for Judge Knight.
Yeah, Commonwealth attorneys have been involved in this somewhat. So the proposal I got yesterday or the other day, the interlocal agreement is just a rough copy of it.
Yes,
Right now,
that's
it's
a
not
working
finalized.
copy, that's not finalized.
Okay.
Nick and other county attorneys, along with Commonwealth attorneys, have been working on that. They're gonna be changing some of that wording to add the 3 judges spots and the different,
That's what I'm saying. That's
yeah, it's not in there. So that's why I didn't put it out there, because I didn't put it up there, I didn't want to confuse everybody, because that's changing, as we kind of navigate this, it's changed
Well, I
a
was just
little
going
bit.
by what you were talking, earlier about, and I kept saying.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
just want to make sure.
that PowerPoint's the most up to date, that just hasn't been edited yet.
We've got the Gallatin County Judge Executive here. Do you have any questions? No.
I mean, I guess based on Nick's recommendation, we go ahead and do a formal commitment to this approach. I guess I'll make that motion that we, again, there's a lot to be developed on this framework and everything else, but it sounds like it's something we need to be participating in, and there's a lot of benefits.
I'll second it.
Is
Okay.
that sufficient?
We've got a motion on the floor by Scott,
Second.
second by Benji. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Judge's comments. In your packet, there was a bid or quote for a CASA lift station upgrade. I'm just asking if the fiscal court wants to move forward with that. Give you a yea or nay so we can move forward. Rick's here, our maintenance personnel, maintenance tech, and he's been involved in this, and this is an upgrade. Right now, everything's working well. He can bring the electric out of the bottom of the pit that's getting wet, but if y'all are ready to go forward with this, I just give me an okay.
I'll give you an okay, but I'm kind of biased because I'm working structure put together.
I know.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
Is that the form of the motion?
no, I just want to okay the court to move forward.
Go ahead.
Okay.
I guess one additional thing on that we didn't want to do, and it's not part of this, but it could be a different vendor, would be actually putting an 8-foot high chain link fence around that at some point in time.
We've already, Rick and I have already discussed how to do that, so with the weather being the way it is.
Yeah,
it's muddy,
that's
we're not gonna.
not the biggest priority right now.
Okay, master comments, we'll start with Clay today.
I don't really have anything other than just be careful out there today. It looks like the roads may be getting a little slow, so that's all the county workers for what they do again. Unfortunately, they're out in it, so be safe. That's all I got.
Master Benji?
I just got two comments, Judge. I got Mr. Craig in English has got a driveway, issue out there. I want to explain to you with the road department. And then, Miss Barr's got a clogged, culvert out in her way, so.
Where she live at out there?
What was it, Farm Ranch or whatever?
Okay. Well, just give me that after the meeting.
I'll give you the
and get
address
this,
and stuff.
Yeah, and we'll get that checked out.
Other than that, that's all.
Okay, Scott?
Yeah, just first off, I want to special thanks to Rick and Roger for all of this. You guys kind of thrust and it's really well done and I appreciate all the work, the hide wires and all that stuff, so kudos to that. Other than that, I guess I just did have a question regarding the nuisance ordinance. Are we closer to getting the code enforcement board in place and stuff? I mean,
Yes.
like,
Probably about, end of this month, next fiscal court meeting, I'll just announce who they're gonna be. Move forward with the code enforcement law. On his lead there, I was going to wait to, but I'm just let the masters know that the winter conference, is in March, the end of March 28th, 26th and 27th, I believe. Spring, I'm sorry. If y'all need to let Tanya know if you all planning on attending, it's the Masters and Commissioner Conference. And also I was gonna bring up about Rick and Roger, as much work they've done in the courtroom here and has updated all the wires are hidden, everything to our cameras, everything's put in, been repainted. We've got the new desk and stuff up here and everything, so, I really appreciate all their work and the extra work they've done here, so. After that, comment, county attorney.
Judge, if you just let me know when you have those code enforcement seated so I can line up their training.
Okay,
Also, I'll be meeting with Deputy Judge here next week or so. We've got a few projects we'll work on, touch base on.
okay, thank you. We have nothing for executive session.